So I found out about Fulbright in graduate school. So I was at the Rhode Island School of Design until last year. And when I found out about the program, I was thinking, you know, I've lived in the US my whole life. I really only know English, unfortunately. And I thought it'd be amazing to be able to live and stay in another country. Because I did like a study abroad a couple of years, a very long time ago in undergrad, and was there for a couple months and just realized the things that you learn away from the country, it's so different when you're there, and you just pick up so much more being in the place. My background's actually in architecture, so I actually came to glass through the lens of architecture. And I was at a program where we had a lot of free reign. We can kind of be experimental with things. And I remember, I think the pivotal moment of how I entered glass and kind of glass art in general was really through experimentation, meaning taking a welding torch with a friend to some beer bottles, trying to melt glass and work with it. That doesn't work because it explodes, so it's a little dangerous, but that was my absolute entry point into just seeing what a sort of wondrous material it is. It's hard to work with, and it has kind of a mind of its own. So I think that's also, as someone who works with a lot of different materials and likes to get them to do things that they don't want to do, glass is a perfect match because it definitely has a mind of its own. I was actually focusing on, like, glass has always kind of been a part of my architectural practice and my architectural way of thinking and working, but I was in grad school before working, or before grad school in glass, doing robotics. So it was kind of a circuitous path of how I entered glass, or kind of like how I got here. I guess to speak to that a little bit, you know, after working in in architecture and robotics, for a couple years, I decided that I really wanted to focus on glass specifically. And for me, that looked like going back to school where I could really kind of dive into it technically and learn more of the glass history. And I'm glad I did that. And you asked also about how I learned about Czech glass. So that was actually about 10 years ago, where I was in the Corning Museum of Glass, and there's just these massive glass sculptures, just monumental in size, like, and I was so curious about them, and I was so curious that they were all by Czech artists and designers, and so that was really my entry point into the world of Czech glass, because there is a history here since medieval ages of glassworking, but seeing sort of how that's evolved is both how artists and designers are thinking about it, how they're working with it is really interesting to me. I'm sad to leave, but my stay here has been excellent. It's, I learned so much just by being here, and I wouldn't have been able to imagine so many of the experiences that I've had here. Zlín in particular has just been a great sort of second home. I think it's really interesting because there's not a ton of tourists here. And so it's been really interesting to meet people within that context and there's been so much generosity that just sort of sharing traditions. You know, I share some of US, and folks here are sharing some of their traditions. Like I had starry sear, which is like, it was someone's grandfather's recipe of like, you just leave farro and beer and salt, you mix it up, and I was like, I've never had a flavor like that. So it's been really nice, and it's felt, it's been really interesting to sort of learn more about Moravian region too. I think in terms of glass, just being somewhere that has such a long history, and there's so much of just technical expertise, intergenerational, generation after generation, and just learning from the people who have had those experiences has been amazing. Something that really stuck out to me was the education systems within glass art. What I learned was that between some of the students are starting to work with glass in a pretty technical manner from the ages 14 or say 15. And it's been really interesting to think of my education, where American education can be very general and broad, and students typically specialize when maybe they're between 17 and 19 years old. So that's been fascinating to learn about, both through the students and at all ages, and through working at the different schools, both here at UTB and in Vlašské Meziříčí. I work in a very interdisciplinary manner. You know, I'm working, and not always at the same time, but I'm working with architecture. Sometimes I'm working more on the technological side, sometimes with robotics. Right now it's very material focused. It's very much more centered in the fine arts. And I think all of these things inform each other. But I think my younger self was a lot more insecure about these things that seemed so different. And I think that's part of, that's I think what I would tell my younger self now, is that these things actually are really complementary. As different, as disparate as they are, they really inform each other. And I think it's sort of something that they all kind of rely on each other now in just how I work. If you have access to a glass studio and are even able just to see glass being worked with, it's such an old material, it's such a fascinating material, and if you can even just see it, just do it. It's worth it.